All right, I'll start with this, and turn this off for now. Everybody can hear me all right? All right, great. Well, thank you very much for inviting us up here. I used to live in Prescott in the early 70s, lived here for about 3 years. Boy, has it changed, huh? And also, I want to commend the Lookout. That's great. It's one of my favorite stores to come up here for. In fact, I come up especially just to shop there. So I encourage everybody to continue to support them as well. Has anybody here heard of Liberty Wildlife? I've got a couple hands. We are a wildlife rescue and rehabilitation facility in the valley. However, we serve the entire state of Arizona. We take in native Arizona animals. And this is not just birds. We're associated primarily with birds, but we take in mammals, reptiles, bugs, and birds, lots of birds. Eagles, hawks, owls, falcons, songbirds, just about all the passerines. I encourage you to take our card and go to our website. It'll give you a little bit more of an overview about Liberty and what we do. I've also brought up a few copies of our yearly magazine. It has our annual report in it that'll tell you, again, a little bit more about us. We were founded in 1981 by a veterinarian in the valley, Dr. Kathy Orr, who had a great horned owl brought to her that had been shot by the gentleman who brought it. And there was no place else to take. She was a small and large animal vet, and she saw a need for it. And Liberty Wildlife started out in her bathroom, like many rehabbers. And then it went to her garage, took over her house. She had about 1.5 acres property and started building enclosures, and it went from there. And we've been at our current site for 7 years now. Is that right, Chris? So it's been a wonderful change for us and really allows us to do our outreach because we feel the wildlife of Arizona and just of the world is important to save, to nurture. Again, we take in everything. If we cannot treat it there at Liberty, such as coyotes, javelina, that sort of thing, we triage them, we stabilize them, and then we send them up to Southwest Wildlife, which is in the valley as well, and we work closely with them. But the rest of them, they can stay at Liberty if they are not releasable. And area, just much like an ER, about 50% of the birds that will stick with birds will die within the first 24 hours due to their injuries. Also due to the stress of being held by a two-legged creature that is going to, but usually it's because of their injuries. Of those 50% left, many are, their broken wings are splinted, legs are splinted. They are treated with medication for West Nile. We had avian flu to contend with these past 1.5 years. There's not really a care, but as you know, it's pretty deadly. These birds then spend some time in medication, and then they go outside into our rehabilitation area, which is where we want them to be. Running, they're going to eat well, put on lots of muscle mass, and we hope to release them. So we have about a 60 to 70% success rate, which we feel is pretty darn good. And one of the very neat things about volunteering at Liberty Wildlife, and we're both volunteers, is that we get to do some of those releases. So this last weekend I released 8 common ravens, 2 turkey vultures, and a yellow-headed blackbird. Santa Cruz Flats, is anybody familiar with that area? South. Try to release them where they came from or in a suitable habitat. the case of the turkey vultures, they're migrating right now of the Santa Cruz River. And Chris will talk about another bird a little bit later that also flies along that pathway. Birds can be released. So what happens then? If they have a good quality of life ahead of them and they are training, they can become display birds for us, or if they're not comfortable around people, we have a program called foster parenting. It's a great horn, barn owl, red tail, Cooper's hawk will take care of babies that are not theirs. So we put them in with the foster parents, and they will raise them to be a Cooper printing. And so it's better to be really raised by your own species. Our great horned owls probably take care of the majority of the foster babies, and it's a pretty cool little thing. Our foster girls lay eggs. We don't breed them, but nature, remember, they lay eggs, infertile eggs, and we allow them to sit on those eggs for that 30, 35 days that it's going to require. During that time, usually it's about that end of January, February, we start getting the winds. They get blown out of the nest. They get knocked out of the nest. They come in. We walk into the enclosure, up, take an egg, and you put a baby in there. And the great horned owl goes, well, will you look at that? And it will bring tears to your eyes because they will immediately start making baby, I'm going to feed you noises, and they will stuff a mouse in them. It's the most extraordinary thing to see. And Chris, some of the birds we exchange with other rehab or zoos if they need display. Some birds, quality of life that they would have with their injuries is such that we take a merciful end to that. But there is a small group that seem to get along with people, or they learn to. They're not stressed by being around us, and that's the big quality of life we've brought today. So Chris is going to get our first one out. I especially I'm with Desert Rivers Audubon down in the valley. One of the nice things about bringing our birds to Audubon is you get to see the field marks that you've only been looking at through your binos and the scope. And now you get to see them up really close. We'll have a little question and answer at the end of every presentation. And so, Chris, I'll probably hold the microphone for you. That might work out.
Introduction for this particular gentleman, and I'm used to talking to fifth graders, so forgive me if I ask some pretty basic questions. Anybody knows what this is? So this is a great horned owl. And why did we bring a great horned owl to an Audubon Society? Well, Tucker is a classic ambassador for liberty wildlife. So what happened to Tucker? And he hit a bird, and he found the bird tucked, since his name is Tucker, he found the bird tucked into the grill of his pickup. See that? And he didn't really think the bird is still there, and he literally cut the grill off of the pickup and brought it down to Liberty from the grill. And amazingly, look at him. He's great. So he had a head impact injury, and he had an injured left wing and left leg. But you can hardly see that now, right? I might move over here just in case he mutes. All right. And I do want to talk a little bit more about Tucker himself, because he's just such an amazing personality. So in our education program, yes, the birds need to be trained, but the people also need to be trained. And so Tucker is the most gentle soul that we have. He's the first bird that a lot of us have learned to work with. So every year we have an education class of, say, 10 to 30 people, and this guy will be the first or second bird. And his temperament's phenomenal. He almost never gets angry. He deals with all these strange people that come up to him, and he just maintains a really good attitude. So Tucker's, like, I would say, one of our stars for sure. Yeah. And so he does have to work. He gets free room and board, right? We feed him 4 mice every day. That's what he gets to eat, and he has a nice wooden house. He presents. So he comes out here on programs like this, but also it's really fun for the teens. Owls are amazing in raising the orphaned animals, and a little plug for Liberty is come and visit in the spring, because they are cute little fur balls and they're really fun to see. But they also produce pellets, and so we have a teen program in the weekend that dissects the pellets. They don't have the acid that the other birds do, so you can really understand what they ate. So in this case, of course, they'll dissect a lot of mice when they open the pellets. Just a few factoids. I mean, you all know, I'm sure, that great horned owls are crepuscular, and they're named great horned owls, of course, because of the horns on their heads that are not. The way you identify it, of course, as you know, is the distinctive white neck, the horns, and the color. The nice thing about seeing them up close, like Claudia said, a lot of you have seen them in the binoculars, right? But up close, you could really see the color and how well he would. You can see the color and how well he blends in with the trees, right? At least in the field, I don't know if Prescott's like this too, but in Phoenix, I find like around Halloween is when the owls start getting really active. So I've seen several in my backyard come by. Yeah. And of course, another thing, we're going to talk about their claws. They're super strong. If you see the talons up close, again, this is something you probably can't see the binos, and I can't get too close to you. But look how big their talons are. And they're super strong, so it's kind of fun. Sometimes we have field trips come, and you have big, strong policemen or big, strong, firemen. And scale that we can squeeze with the hands. And the big, strong guys can do maybe 40, 50 pounds for a split pounds, double that. And they can hold on to it. So not only hold on to the prey and fly around. And of course, they have sometimes very heavy prey. They love to eat skunks at night, So I could go on and on and on, but I know you guys know a lot about it. So are we having questions bird by bird? So do you have any questions about Tucker or great horned owls? Crepuscular. Crepuscular is in the dawn and evening, so kind of that time of day. A lot this time of year, right? I'm having. That's when they'll be active. Yeah. You have a lot of great horned owls here, right, in Prescott? Yeah. Yeah.
How much larger are the females?
We get people, they say they've seen the biggest bird they've ever seen, like 5 feet big, you know, and what happens is, I think, in the crepuscular time, when you look at it the right way, it looks 5 feet big, but yeah, they don't get that much, than maybe 50% bigger than this guy. Yeah. I have to, how much do you think he weighs? He's so big.
Holding him, so I'm thinking maybe 3 or 4 pounds.
Wow. Yeah, he's just about 2.5 pounds. Yeah. That's amazing, because most people, they're not have the experience that you have, right? But most people think, oh, 20 pounds, 30 pounds, because they look so big, right? But it's all feather and the light bones. Yeah. So do any of you know what he's doing with his neck? What that's called? And it's kind of like a dog. Kind of like a dog, that's how they cool down. Yeah.
How old is he?
Oh, thank you, I forgot that. Yeah. So he came as an adult in 2015, so we don't know for sure how old he is, but he's
How long can they live in the wild?
yeah, so in captivity you always double, but in the wild usually say 10 to 15 years if they're lucky, and so maybe double that here. How fast can they die? So they hunt at night, and it's not necessarily the speed with the owls, and they're kind of blocky and chunky. But their secret mechanism, and thank you for asking that because I didn't talk about it, is their stealth. So they're very quiet. Well, he does see well with those big old eyes, but it's the silence. So he'll come from nowhere. I don't know if you've experienced this, but I've been in my backyard and what? There's an owl right there. I don't hear a thing. It is right there. So yeah, it's not so much the speed in this case, it's the stealth and the strength when he captures the animal.
Tell us about his hearing ability.
His hearing ability. So yes, that's a very good question too. So, a very good comment. So he's got asymmetric ears, and unfortunately you can't see them. They're hidden underneath his feathers. But it's outstanding. So even though he can see very well and he needs the silence, he can hear super well, and that's because they have these asymmetric ears, and that is one of them kind of points upwards and one of them points downwards, and that's how they're able to triangulate when they hear something. So yeah, at nighttime when it's dark, absolutely, that's what they need to hunt. Amazing hearing. And I think Claudia's going to talk more with her bird about the structure of the face, right? It's a little bit more pronounced.
Tell you what, you move down here.
Yeah. So I would say hearing's the main thing, but yes, they use their sight very well. And the funny thing about the smell is, like I said, they do go for skunks, and we tell, so they think that the smell is not that great. But we have a funny story in Liberty that we bring in people bring in the owls that that are hurt and need fixing really bad because they've just been eating skunks. And, yeah. Yeah. No, so when we feed them the 4 mice a day, they're dead. So yeah, they'll eat dead. It's much more cost effective to have dead prepackaged mice.
So I thought it might be kind of fun to have them both out at the same time so that you can look at them. This, of course, is a barn owl. And this is Venus. People ask us, where do we get the names? Well, it sort of depends. Sometimes they run in roodles, like we have some fans of Game of Thrones. So we have Cersei, we have Sansa, we have Tyrion. Get the drift? Yeah. And somebody started doing astronomy, so we've got Mars, we've got Pluto, Jupiter, Neptune, and Venus. So this is a female, so she's bigger than a male would be. She weighs about a little over 1.5 pounds. It's, again, like Chris said, it's those light bones and feathers. And I do want to take a minute here to tell you that we are open to the public on Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday, 10 to 1. So go to our website, come on down and visit us. You can have an up-close and personal experience with birds while you walk our trails, and we have several programs as well. One of the things about owls, and I was watching Tucker doing it, is notice how Venus is looking over her shoulder. She's really checking it out. We as mammals have 7 bones in our neck. Most birds, including passerines, have 13 to 14. So as I usually say to a classroom of 4th graders, here's your trick question. How many bones in the neck are there in a giraffe? You know the answer. That's right. And why is that? Mammal. Good. And I always get a 4th grader who comes up with that, which is really nice to see. So look at the facial difference. Not only coloration, a little bit structurally different. However, they've got one thing in common. Goes around the face. And barn owls hunt strictly, almost strictly by sound. Going on. But that disc around the face is actually a disc. Picture dish. Have you ever put your hand up to listen better? That's exactly what's happening here, is that funnel. Really remarkable. This bird can find a mouse in a completely dark room, and they've done experiments for that. Completely dark. Barn owls, on average, eat 6 to 8 mice or small rodents and stress the importance of using barn owls to take care of the rodents. Farmers are finding out that this really is a good idea. We got a pair of barn owls. Mom and dad, they've got 3 kids. How many mice a night? How many mice in a week? How many in a month? More. I lose track too. So the point of that exercise is, it's a lot of rodents that are taken off, and you didn't have to use poison. Way of taking care of that situation. So there are some schools of thought that think there's more dots on the. Some scientists in England who had way too much time on their hands did a study that they had more dots because it was an indicator of fertility. Dots, better the chances. We see males with dots as well. We also hear people say, well, the female with that sort of brownish tan wash that only the females have. And they have a wonderful coloration. Anybody who's seen these barn owls on our sandstone cliffs, this bird disappears into. Now Venus, we're not really sure of her age. She came to us as an adult, and and the reason why she is not releasable is her back toe is called the hallux. He has a paralyzed back talon, doesn't work at all, so she cannot grasp food. It's impossible for them to just grab their prey and hold on to it that way. They're one of our few owls that have the dark eyes as opposed to the places with you, and so you can get him back. There's a movie made called The Guardians of Ga'Hoole. Ga'Hoole. It's spelled not E-A''H-O-O-L-E. And the woman who wrote it on the owls, it wasn't just fantasy total. Now, just a moment, and I want you to try to listen for Venus's wings. Gravel. But as far as the wings themselves, you don't hear a thing. Should I turn this off? I must be, okay.
Is that okay? Should I turn this off for now?
No, she's by the speaker.
Oh, I should step away from the speaker. Okay, got it. They're found, of course, just about all. So they're pretty widespread owl. Chris, I'll take some questions. Somebody found her from not being able to hunt well. And we do have rescue transport if you call our hotline. They answer until advise you on what to do. If it's a passerine, usually it's a raptor, we will send somebody out. And we generally encourage people to have deal with the pointy end on these birds because that's their first line of defense. It's not the beak, it is the feet. And the great horned owl can squeeze about 8. An eagle, around 300. So that's something you just your business. All right. Yes?
Are the ears within the disc?
No, they're actually out. It's just the way that the dish sits that it can just funnel it back in. One other really cool fact about barn owls is, have you ever noticed one that's perched or maybe dozing in the day and they seem to have a split? The next time you look at an owl like this is an owl who is awake and alert and is trying to hear everything. And she's hearing all this noise, that's why she's restless. When she's sleeping, it's like us. She doesn't have earplugs, but she'd like to cut down on the noise. They can actually move their face backwards. And so the sound comes and slips off the disc so that it's not funneling into their ears. Hence, when they do this on both sides, you'll get this empty space in the middle. It's pretty interesting to see that. If you think you have a bunch of palm trees around your place and you know that you think there are owls in there and you want to know what kind of owl it is, walk around the bottom of the tree and look at the color of the pellets. Anybody know the color of great horned owl pellets? Gray, tan. Barn owl? Nope. Always dark brown to black. Next time you're out and about, by doing that. We also encourage you, should you have palm trees or trees that you know owls are nesting in, please don't. A large majority of the baby owls that we get in as orphans are brought to us by tree trimmers in the valley. So just a word. All right, Chris.
You want to talk about the red apple?
Yeah.
So, you want me to?
Oh, you want me to?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
So look at the feet here. 3 forward and 1 in the back. But the really neat thing about owls is that one on the outside, they can swing it around the back. And they can carry their prey much better. You'll see that like in woodpeckers. That's just a pretty extraordinary thing for them to do. All right, you're on.
Okay.
I'm going to go behind you.
Of course. So this girl's name is Addison, and she is a Swainson's hawk, which I think is kind of neat. I've been birding for 10-ish years, and I've never seen a Swainson's hawk in the wild. Addison is fairly young. She came to us her origination was actually in Kingman. She was found as a fledgling. She missed you, Claudia. And then she was transferred to another facility in Yuma. And then eventually she found her way to Liberty, where we have great facilities. Was she here? We couldn't release her because sometime during that year, she did not get the proper food needs that she needed to develop right. So she has folded fractures in her wings and also her claws, so she can't fly well enough to be. This is kind of interesting for me. I'm really curious how she acts with me because I haven't had a lot of experience with her. So I'm curious if she looks kind of aggressive or mantly, but she looks very comfortable, doesn't she? Which is great. And so when Claudia was talking about educating the birds, a lot of people have worked with her before I did to make sure that she's comfortable with a lot of people. So I think she's going to be a great bird going forward. So telltale marks of the Swainsons. Brown in the back. And then one really cool thing is, I'm sure we've all seen tons of red-tailed hawks. Red-tailed hawk, you look at the front, the patagial area, right? Rings. Well, the Swainsons, the opposite. So it's really fun to do a comparison of the Swainsons and a red-tailed hawk. So if you look quickly, you see how she's very light, but has the black feathers. So that's a good telltale. So one thing I really want to talk about is a huge subject related to Swainsons. So I'm going to ask what the relevant subject is pertaining to Swainsons. Anybody? Yes? It's a beauty of you find them. I'll talk a little bit more about their diet later. But what they're famous for is a very long migration. So to my knowledge, the longest migration is an Arctic peregrine that goes all the way from northern Canada all the way down to southern South America. But this is the second longest. They travel over 6,000 miles every year, most of them. And they live in the summer where you find them pretty much anywhere west of the Rockies, west of the Mississippi. And then they migrate down to Argentina in the winter. So people, I don't want to do math like Claudia, it's too late in the day for me. 2 months, that equates to roughly 120 miles a day. So I've never seen one in the wild. Claudia says when she talked about the Santa Cruz down south of Phoenix recently, over the weekend before, in a field on their migration. And the highlight is evidently in Central America. Right. Oh, she is comfortable with us. That's nice. Tens of thousands go over. So they count like 600,000 in the course of a year, and you can see 1,000 in a day. So in Panama City and Yucatan in Mexico. So I'd love to see that at some point. Pretty amazing. And another neat thing about it is, right, but they migrate starting in September, and they're not, sometimes they stay. I do not want to forget to say there are some populations in southern USA and in Arizona, I understand, that do stay year-round, but the vast majority have that long migration. So another fun thing about the migration is what do they eat when they migrate? And so they have a varied diet, and I'll start in the summer when they're having their nests, and they live in the US, and they live on the plains and the grasslands, and a lot of their diet then is mammals. So you'll see them on agricultural fields, and they'll hunt from a perch, and they'll hunt aerial, and they also hunt on the ground. So I've read stories that they'll sit in groups, ground squirrels to pop up, and when they do, they'll nab them. I've also heard that fresh dirt on a gopher hole, they'll like lunge in there with their claws and grab the gopher out of the fresh dirt. And then I've also heard that but the most exciting thing for me, I think anyway, is they eat they eat grasshoppers galore. That's in the pellets, they found up to like 100 grasshoppers. They did. Yeah, exactly. They did. So like, and then they stopped that, and then it was much better in the following. One fun thing in Liberty is we have something called daily care and hand feed. So this is a spoiled bird who gets but some of them are a bit older, and we give them mice on their mew. And during the migration season, don't just lay the mice out, we can actually throw them, and they'll catch it in midair. So that's really fun for the day part of the year. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what can you think of anything else on Swainson's?
Well, I want to let you know that you actually have some nesting Swainson's up there out Chino Valley. They are now nesting in the valley area. I monitor a nest near Sierra Vista, out by Portal, the Wilcox Playa, slowly. Nesting in Arizona because we have what they need. We've got bugs, rodents, and birds. And if they're a northern bird and their diet is rodents and bugs, when winter comes or the cold weather comes, what happens to your prey? It hibernates, it goes away. Stay for a while and stop and fuel up at a place that may have what they need, a lot of bugs. for grasshoppers, and down here, the as well as the white checkered cabbage moth. And usually migration is underway. And they know, they time it. And so why go to Argentina? You know, stick around here. It's a better place to be. You know, we have a tremendous influx of, I'm assuming you do here in Prescott. Grande, it's one of my favorite areas for winter birding for raptors. You even get caracaras down there regularly. And that one day I got lucky with the Swainson hawks. They're one of the only hawks other than broadwing that fly in groups. Everybody else, were all resting up in a field that had just been tilled. And some of them were waiting on. You saw Swainson hawks, turkey vultures, crested caracaras following the tractors. So these birds are, you know, they're pretty smart.
Do you see anything different in the personality when it comes to that time of year when they think they should be migrating?
Yeah, well, a lot of our birds have the same thing. They get very, how would you say, antsy, sort of
Antsy,
energetic?
restless,
Yeah.
their food requirements up. Great question.
Yeah. Yes?
Do you see them grasshoppers migrate?
We haven't figured out the source of grasshoppers yet. Yeah. No, it's mice.
Yeah. Yeah. Quail. They catch for larger hawks. You'll meet one of them. Woe to the roof rat that wanders through an enclosure. And we have king snakes. Gosh, we've got some bull. All of them haven't. But it's kind of like ordering out pizza for the birds.
But we really do need to monitor their intake, right? So every day we weigh them and we know how much food they eat because we need to check on their health constantly.
Questions? Maria is certainly. I met Maria. I'm a volunteer bald eagle nest. The Verde River. And you saw some wonderful birds out there. You have great agri-fields. Yeah. All right, I'm going to let, we're going to be all. Addison is still kind of in training, learning all about this boxing thing. They decide they just don't want to go in. There we go. All right. Hi. We have some common ravens. We do have a Chihuahuan as well, but we've got Clarence, who, and you know they're great mimics. And he will say hello, and there's nothing creepier than to be walking, like tonight. I'll walk back with this bird, and I'll hear Lenny go, "Hi, Len." And he used to imitate, you know him, a gentleman's laugh, so you'd hear Art laughing. And then Clarence knows his name. "Hi, Clarence." And Clarence is a little bit aggressive, and he would peck at volunteers. And what's the first thing if you get pinched or pecked? What do you say? That's what Clarence says. When he gets upset or he sees certain people, he'll go, "Ow, ow." And the other one that Clarence does, I don't know if you've heard it. Have you ever had a hose that you go to turn it on or off and it makes that little Clarence does that one too. Oh, and then the new one, Sirius, our Chihuahuan, birds to get on the glove with a hup command. So we'll say hup by Sirius, and he'll go hup. And he does it in the trainers' voices. So I saved this one for last because this is one of my favorite birds. What have I got?
No, they said it golden.
That's one of the first comments I'll get. And she is a rufous morph. They divided them up. You know, they all used to call them all dark. And then they decided, oh, we'll have the dark morph and we'll have the rufous morph. And then she's a rufous, and you can still see her belly band. Girl, female, and she weighs about 20 pounds. She is one of the birds that we unfortunately will see a lot at Liberty. Somebody took her from the nest when she was a chick, or a nest, and they go, "Oh my gosh, this is just so cute," and they keep them. And fortunately, she got bones, unlike Addison, whose bones were very weak. Excuse me. But the side effect of being raised by 2 weeks of life, they imprint on people. And they don't do well once they go. Didn't have a mentor to teach them a territory, prey. And that's a shame, because if we released her, but she won't go and pair up with her own species because she doesn't recognize them. And this, oh my gosh, I'd love to see that about 10% of the population of red tails are the rufous or dark morphs. Here she goes. This is called, it's a comfort thing. They get their feathers all lined up. It's from the Old English term, a rousing good time. So imprinting is it's just a, and now we have federal guidelines where we cannot release them back into the wild. So she has been with us since 2003. Her name is Chaco. She's fully flighted, and that's another sad part of it. These birds are totally, they don't quite think like the other red tail. That's not a good thing. Am I standing too close again? But she's got, even though she's a rufous morph, she's still got the marks of a red tail. So I'm going to have She's got that beautiful marking for the patagios. We have a flight program. Chaco's one of the birds that flies from person to person. And if you come on down and visit, you can see her fly. Chevron on the back of her. And she's got a red tail. I know. Time, knock on wood. It's the feet we worry about more than the beak itself. But I don't get too close. Because she's imprinted again, she's not afraid of people. So she has less boundaries than, say, some who are a little bit cautious. So if she were in the wild, she would be, of course, omnivorous. We've seen them do roadkill, snakes, a lot of snakes. It's one of the few snakes that will actually purposely. You ever seen this happen or heard of it? I love the web. Go online. Rattlesnake versus red-tailed hawk. Geographic one. What they do is what we call a matador dance. There is no blood supply in feathers. In the muscle part, yes. They'll spread their wings, and they do this to tease the snake. And the snake sees the movement, strikes at the wing. Remember the business end? Ever watched the National Geo one? They even do it at ground level. So it's, for those for the faint of heart, you may not want to watch it, but it's very interesting to watch it. Head. Isn't that wonderful to see that? Mm-hmm. So, golden eagle when we first bring her out. If anything, she sees them as competition for food. And so she's not housed with any red tails. We don't house. But she's very much aware. But no, they just do not. And we've found, and we have stories, we actually have an owl that's done it. If they fail at hunting in the wild, these imprinted birds, when you get hungry, to people. Now, if you had this bird flying up to you and try to land on your arm, it would not end well. Not well. Yes?
I know two boys in Skull Valley, and they took a baby raven out of the nest and raised it. What happened to it? Well, it went flying.
That's right. Yeah, we hear that. Had somebody else over here?
I remember way back that an uncle of mine split the tongue underneath on a raven and taught it to talk. Is that possible?
You know, they can do that without that sort of thing. Going back to my example of Clarence, when he says, "Hi, Clarence," it's a, and when Lenny says, "Hi, Lenny," it's very clear. He also says, "Hi." So sweet. Hi, Roop. But Roop is no longer with us, so Lenny doesn't talk about Roop anymore. And I think they're so intelligent. Any others? Yes? The red tails? Gosh, they come all the way down from Canada. We get a... They'll continue on down into Mexico. As far as South America. There may be some that do. There's more food. And you can find plenty of Arizona, northern New Mexico.
Do you have a huge room where they can all?
It depends on the bird. I like that question. If it's a compromised bird who cannot enclosures, they're about 12 by 12, 15 by 15, depending on the size of the bird. We have state and federal guidelines that tell us how specific bird. But if we have a bird that cannot fly, they're by 12, and they get disability ramps, so they can walk up and down. The others, like Choco, she can fly perch to perch. And again, she's part of our out flying, what, maybe 40 feet at least. Probably the majority of our birds are somehow. Anything else? Yes?
You mentioned rattlesnake. The rattlesnake did bite the bird in an important part. Was that poisonous?
But, you know, it's off. She won't let me do it. Dig under the feathers. There's a lot to the actual skin on this bird. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I don't think so.
Are we good to go? Well, Chris, we're going to be preaching to the choir here, but Chris is going to tell you a little bit. Yeah, you are.
Do we have nice pictures?
We have pictures or...
So this is great for, we do a lot of presentations for schools. It's really important for them to see. It's out in a cart like this, and it can't get out, so it can't eat, so we kill the kids. So let's flip it apart. There's some basic things.
audience, because there are balloon lovers out there. With how you dispose of them.
We lost it again. Just tie the trash bag, just done simple knot will prevent it from getting around an animal produce space.
Thank you, Chris. I sort of dumped that on him. I don't think he's done it out of the bag. We have a series of photographs that we show, but they're pretty difficult in an audience this size to see all the way back. But we like to emphasize to children that that's where it starts, for trash. It really makes a big impact on our wildlife. We have a gopher snake. You want to tell them the history of Elmer?
So his name's Elmer because he was found on a, he's like this big and he was really stuck, and actually the Vets of Liberty spent quite boy glue traps right outside, boy glue traps outside.
You can have them in your garage if you want for bugs and in your closet, but where there's going to be a bird or snake sort of thing that's going to get trapped in it. If birds come in these glue traps, they lose their feathers. We have a whole process from gooby now that's been invented to try to get them off of the glue. But if it's just about impossible. They lose so many feathers that they have feathers. So I don't know, did Elmer get some broken ribs, or was that one of the others?
I've not heard that Elmer had ribs. Lydia had the broken head.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had, it's really, so, it's a shameless plug, if you come into open hours with like kids or grandkids or something, they love this interactive room because you get to pet snakes. It's really fun. And we have one that has 2 scars on it, and it's just really nice to hold. So I like to show that snake around to the kids because Liberty did from, we don't know if it's a dog or an owl or what that caused these things, but even though the snake was in the wild, it's very tame.
One of the things about, should you come down and visit us and have these actual close encounters with various critters, you get to hear more of the histories. And the histories are the history of the species, which is interesting. It's always interesting to us what exactly happened to them. My favorite is Cochise. Cochise is a male bald eagle from Wyoming. And there's a young bird, he discovered a trout farm. And people were feeding him from that trout farm. So Game and Fish trapped him, and they took him far, far away. Came back, and that was strike 2. People were feeding him again, and it was deemed that this was just an unsafe thing for this bird. So he was trapped and sent down to us. He's now a great bird. We have on the open hour days on Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday, we have a picture taken with them if you want. We have a local bird by the name of Sonora, who is from the Doka Nest on the Verde River. They were in their nest. They were being watched by Game and Fish nest watchers. And there was an Africanized bee nest in the tree. Birds hit the tree just wrong, and they came out and they attacked the chicks. And because the chicks could not fly, their only option was to jump out of the nest. It was close to 70 feet. Happened. The sibling was stung all over her cere, all over the soft tissues, feet, her eyes. She lost her outer eyelid. Remember, they have 3 eyelids. Wing that could not be set back into full flight. So she is also one of our flight birds that you can see being flown. She can't do that wonderful eagle soaring thing. I think that's pretty much it for the night. We've given you a nice close-up look. We're not looking forward to what they're doing on 17 going home. But take a chance.